All right. So now we are live and we are going to start our brand building series. Today we're going to talk about digital PR secrets for credibility building part 1. And I just want you all to know that today I am joined by two wonderful women. Okay, they created the podcast VA School. It is a free community designed to support podcast VAs, managers, podcasters like myself, and podcast producers who want to succeed in the podcast niche. Okay, but I'm going to let them tell you more about that later on. So I'm going to call in our guest for today. May I present to you the podcast management and booking expert, co founder of Valuepod Productions, Miss Eloisa Almanicido, and the podcast launch expert and co-founder of Valuepod, Seth Mercado.
Yay!
Hi.
Clapping,
Yay.
clapping,
Hi
Thank
clapping.
you.
everyone.
Thanks,
Welcome to my
Mel.
channel.
Hi, welcome to your channel. Thank you, Mel. Thank you for inviting us to your channel.
Yes, it's a pleasure because when it comes to podcasts, actually here in the Philippines, the first people that really comes to mind are you. Like if I was asked one time, like remember I approached you, Eloisa. I was asked and approached by a future business coach, and she did mention that she wanted to do a podcast series. And the first people who really came to my head are you guys. Yes, awesome.
Coming from you, that's not,
Yeah,
that's so
I mean
great to hear.
serious, but you know what? I know that there are people out there who, they're not really into podcasts yet, but I do believe that this is going to be the future of content. So right now we have Clubhouse, right? And the rise of voice only content. There's a lot of them right now. And I do see the value in it because number one, I'm an introvert. Well, ambivert actually. And number two, I can record my voice, like even though I don't have any makeup and I can still give value. That's really very comforting and comfortable for me. I can do it anywhere, even in my bedroom. So, being the authority in the podcast niche, what do you think, like in your perspective, what is the state of the podcast industry right now?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So,
Sid. Do you want to go first?
the podcasting is really in the incubation period right now, and brought by the digital shift that the pandemic has brought to us. Podcasting is now considered as the new blogging. So people are really trying to be omnipresent, and they are trying to put up their own podcast shows. Since the pandemic gave us that time that we needed, so previously people are always telling that they cannot start a podcast show because they do not have time, but because we are locked in our houses the previous year, people are now diving into the podcasting industry.
I love that you
Yes,
mentioned the new blogging. So before Eloisa gives her insight about it, it's because right now I feel like okay, so the stats said that there are over 2 million blogs being published on a daily basis. That's a lot. Right now in the podcasting space, would you know the number of podcast channels that are out there at the moment? Like maybe a figure, is it over a billion already or 2 million?
When it comes to the podcast shows that are being published, last year we have over 30 million episodes that was released. So that's 30 million episodes that are talking to their audiences.
But those are not channels, just episodes, right? So it's not really that a
Yeah.
lot. Wow. So it's not an
And
invaded
when it
space.
comes to yeah, Coach Mel, when it comes to channels, right now there are more than I think less than 100. We as podcast producers were able to like distribute and syndicate a podcast show to 30 channels. So that includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Overcast. So yeah, there are so many podcast playing apps available right now.
I didn't know that there were 30. That's new to me. I'm only familiar with Google,
No, that's
Apple, Spotify. Yeah. But what about you, Eloisa? What's the state of podcast for you, like in your perspective?
Well, in my case, if I will be talking about what's the state of the podcasting industry worldwide, it is already booming. I believe it has been booming ever since it started because of what you said, that the convenience of just a very little production time when you are going to do a recording for one episode. So it doesn't require a high quality camera. All you have to do is s- just record into your recording software on your computer, or right now much easier because it's available. They made it so easy that it's made available on the phone. Now, if you will be asking me, how about the podcast industry here in the Philippines? Right now, I am very, very positive that we are going there. We I can say that the door is being opened by the podcast networks that we have, the big podcast networks that we have here in the country. Because as we know, Filipinos are really, really big on videos. With,
Yeah,
of course, in addition to YouTube, now we have TikTok. So the
true.
Filipinos are still is still gearing towards the video. However, since there are a lot of groups, a lot of networks who is making it easy for podcasters uh, to have a mark on the podcasting industry. So I think I'm positive that in 2 to 3 years, we are going to get there. We are going to be like China, who has a big
Oh,
number of podcasts right now. And also I just wanted to add, when you ask Cecilia, how many shows or how many episodes do we have right now? I am at podcastindex.org. And as of right now, the total podcast in the index is 1.3 million. However, the only shows that has been published in the last 60 days is 325,684. So the 1.3 million digit that we have here is not does not consist of only active shows. So it's the total podcast shows in the whole wide world. But as you could see, if you are going to that website, for the last 60 days, there are only 325,684 shows published in the last 60 days. So it means that some are not really active, and the possibility of this industry being saturated is very, very far.
yeah. Actually, I have an additional insight about it and how I see it being used right now. And this is also the reason why I invited you all. Because most of the people, like right now here in the Philippines, who are listening and using podcasts are really, I would say, the ones who has premium semi to premium lifestyle. It's because they are the types of people who want to be able to nurture their minds while they are doing something, and something else, maybe yoga, or maybe they're driving, maybe they're just walking and things like that. It's the common behavior that they are doing right now, and I always always hear it from my friends. In fact, when I talk with them, they would bring up something like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with this blah 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 podcast by Emma, something. Emma podcast, like I know that from Apple Podcasts, like things like that. It's so random, but I see it, and it's quite frankly, I do think that people who are looking to tap the premium market should really have their own podcasts. Would you agree?
Yes, yes, Mel. In addition to what you've mentioned, so podcast listeners or podcast consumers are really those people looking for actionable steps that can transform their lives. There are the people that consumes the podcast do not look for entertainment, but instead they are looking for ways to have that transformative
Yeah.
actions that they can take that can bring them to one state to another. So, yeah.
But
But
do you
oh,
think,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
do you think the podcast industry is damaging the radio industry?
No, not really.
Mm-mm.
It's a two different world.
But
It's as if you're saying that YouTube is ruining Netflix. It's as if
mm,
YouTube is ruining TV. Not every market has its own people. Because if that would be the case, there should be no newspaper anymore because we already
Yeah.
have the
internet,
internet.
yeah.
But there are still people who prefers to read the newspaper every day. So it won't damage the radio industry. They cater to another market. Podcast is a different media form.
I love that. Yeah. I love what you said about that. So it's like people are technically getting more options and just perhaps they're just adding something, but not exactly eliminating whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But based on your experience, so going back to what I've mentioned earlier about encouraging people who would like to tap the premium market, like you should have your own podcast if you really want to attract these premium people. Based on your experience, how are your clients using their podcast to increase their credibility? Because that's the main course topic for today.
Yeah. So for me, most of my clients, I do help B2B coaches. So for those coaches that are still starting to have their like social like their presence online or their are still establishing their brands, they do use their podcast to bring their authority out to their target audience. So when we use the podcast for authority building, it is you that is talking to your audience, not someone else. It is not like having a you can outsource your website or your blog post to a ghostwriter, but doing the recording, you can as the authority, you cannot do it. You cannot outsource it to someone else. So it is you. It is the person or it is the expert that puts his expertise out by himself. So it's not something that he can like outsource or yeah. So it is him who it is he puts his authority out to the audience that he wants to help.
Yeah, well, Mel, I wanted to really ask, when you say premium, does it pertain to just a few number of people? Because I have some clients who doesn't have like premium listeners. So it really
Mm.
does it depends on what kind of message you wanted to put out there. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you have the stats that you have, for example, you made mention that some of the people that you know are into yoga or into something holistic, that they end up listening to a podcast. Could be the reason that they end up listening to a podcast real is not because they are a premium people. Maybe it's because of the multitask capability of listening to a podcast and doing what they want. So, for example, in my case, I help coaches who has membership programs, because in addition to setting them up with a public podcast, I set them up with a private podcast exclusive for the private community. But they are not, I do not consider these people who are inside the community like a very high premium type of people. We think and we believe that the people inside that community is the one who resonates with the message. So the demographics, maybe it will be at play at some point if you are going to ask them to buy something, but the for them to be considered premium people because they are they are listening to a podcast, it doesn't, I don't know, I don't believe in that scenario, because I think that the message really of the podcaster will resonate to the right person. So right
They're
now,
true fans. Yeah.
yeah, they're
True
true fans.
fans.
Yeah. So for example, the Filipino community, I know that a lot of people, um I think Alex Calleja, he is a stand-up comic. I do not listen to his podcast because I don't like listening to that kind of podcast. But listeners, his target listeners is not me. He's he has a different demographic who doesn't necessarily which doesn't necessarily mean that these people who listens to him are in this type of market. It's just that he connects
The
very well.
interests.
Yeah, he connects very well with people who has the same interest. I don't know if I have a point, but
I think the reason why I no, you're making totally sense. Now, the reason why I have the impression that most of the people who are listening on various podcast applications is because of the type of phone, right?
mhm,
And for one to have that type of phone, it's either you are in the middle class above. So it's if you really want to appeal to a certain type of people, say for example more of the mass affluent or super affluent markets, then it's either you put your podcast out in Apple, because most of them use Apple phones. So that's why I had that impression. And with regards to the Alex Calleja, I'm really curious about his demographics. And if is it possible, let's say for example, I want to check the demographics of one podcast, is it possible for me to look at the demographics of people who are listening to his podcast? Is that accessible in public, or is that something that cannot be accessed just like right away, compared to, because right now if you have a TikTok account, there are social media analytics applications out there, right? They can easily
mhm.
like check this is blah blah blah, this is your stats, blah blah, blah. Is that something that you can also do in podcasts?
For podcast, the podcast hosting that the podcaster use usually have this analytics and stats and the demographics that consumes the show, but it is only accessible to the podcast owner. What is the thing that is accessible for public, like public consumption, is just the chart chart rankings and appearances. But with regards to demographics, I know none of as of the moment that is publicly accessible.
Okay, but how about the usage here in the Philippines, like based on your observations, but like in your circle of friends, even in the freelancing community, how are they using podcasts at the moment?
So one podcaster that I know that uses the podcast platform to build her authority is Shimi Hapay. So she's also inside our Hi-Fi network. So Shimi Hapay uses her podcast to interview people that is also like top of mind experts inside the freelancing community. By doing that, um, she she um she's becoming an authority by association. So meaning when she interviews people that are like loadies that are expert in the niches, it also builds her credibility up. So most of the freelancers I know, that's the way that they uses their podcast show to build their brands.
How
Yeah.
about you, Mel? How do you use it?
Yeah, QIB.
How do you use it?
A- Actually, Say already mentioned it. I love that strategy. I call it borrowing someone's influence because
Yeah.
the thing that if you are really starting out, you want to start building your credibility or your reputation. Of course, the great one won't say yes to you if you're just a nobody, right? Or maybe you're a friend, or maybe you know them from this kind of event or whatever. People wouldn't care, but what they would care about is, wow, this person is associated with that person. Therefore, this person must be great. So that is the subconscious meaning, like subconscious meaning to that. Most especially if we post their face alongside with that other wonderful person. So I know that I know Shimi Habai. I
Yeah.
think she is a partner.
Yeah, Melpro, yes.
Thank you, thank you. How about you? But aside from that strategy, what else and how else is a podcast being used based on different podcasts that you have handled as Valuepod?
Well, how they use it really is well, aside from what Cecilia mentioned, authority building, and then if at they are at the point that they wanted to monetize the show, then they use it to monetize, but very not in the sponsorship setup. What we help them do is sell courses, sell master classes, and sell memberships or sell programs. So that's how some of our clients have done it through the podcast. But they do not really rely on the sponsorship kind of setup. And I also do not support that kind of method. Although I do not have anything against it, it's just that I have been used to work with people who already has a product that they can offer their community. They are not going to come up with something new, reinvent the wheel, and then look for the people who is going to buy it. They are very smart people. The people that Cecilia and I have worked with are podcasters who really know how to sell through the show without you knowing it, because they podcast listeners are very loyal, Mel. They are not they if they like you, they like you, and they are going to buy to you. They are going to buy anything that you are going to say that they should buy, because they are very very loyal. Imagine being with them for 15 to half an hour a day. Right between the ears is the brain, so all of the things that you are saying are already instilled in their brain. So most of the podcasters that we work with already has that mindset, that they already have something to offer to their community, that they do not have to go and look for the people who is going to buy it, because they are already there.
Yeah, I love that you pointed it out because I've noticed that too in the most awesome podcast shows. And like, I've noticed this one time. So they were just talking about this subject, and then all of a sudden they're already recommending a specific product. And all of a sudden, to my curiosity, I was checking it out. So I am a fan of noticing my behavior so that I would know how to manage it in some of my campaigns, how I can apply it in the things that I do. And you're right. It's absolutely true. They are
They are
really
loyal.
good. Yeah, they are. That's right. Not since you've mentioned, I just realized it. I'm a very loyal listener of this guy. So oh, it's so funny. But it's Donald Miller, Russell Bronson, and then Gary Vaynerchuk. So I always listen to these guys, and I also listen to random stuff about Emma. You see, the famous Emma. So Anyways, let's
Who's
continue
that
the
Emma,
discussion.
Mel?
Emma, she's girl who's just blabbing about life, but
Really?
she's always in the top. Yeah, she's always in the top chart. I just find it funny when she gives insights about certain things. She's a funny girl. But so for example, I am that person who is looking, I'm an introvert. Let's say, for example, I'm an introvert, and it's going to be hard for me to start associating myself to a certain person. What would you recommend to that person who wants to start a podcast but is shy at the same time? But before that, before you answer that, um, I wanted to share a secret also when it comes to podcast usage, because we have used this in in the past, and I'm not sure if people already know about it. Maybe you haven't, but anyway. So so it's crazy because in the PR industry, right? Um, PR people aren't really the people that are getting the spotlight. They are the ones who are giving the spotlight. So one of the things that you have to have if you are building an authority, okay, you need social proof. Okay, and press PR is one of the best social proofs that you can have. Now, the thing with that is when you pitch, okay, all of these PR people, all of these publicists, journalists, or whatever, they are getting a lot of pitches on a day to day basis. And it's crazy because if you start interviewing the publicists themselves and create a podcast, and you pitch something to them right then and there, oh my god, they're gonna say yes. That's an amazing hack. Just wanted to share that to everyone. And maybe you can have like a certain segment for them, or you can, put the spotlight on the PR people and shine some light on a different side of them. Not exactly because they are just, publicists or whatever, but maybe some other things about them. Like myself, I do PR. You can interview me, things like that. But anyway, okay, going back to the question. So that's just a little trick that you guys can use for those of you who are listening right now. I want to bootstrap stuff about PR. You can add that to one of your strategies. But yeah, so the question earlier was, what's your recommendation for those people who are looking to have their podcasts, looking to build their credibility, an introvert and is very shy when it comes to interacting with people? Or let's say, for example, you're talking to that person right now. What piece of advice would you give to them?
Go, Eloisa.
Do they want it? Do they really want to do it, Mel?
Yes, for
Or
example, yes. They're like, I want to do it. It's just that I'm an introvert and I'm shy.
uh,
And it's hard for me
okay.
to reach out, something like that.
Whenever I hear something like that, it may you should realize while you're saying that, Mel. For example, it's you, and you keep on saying that I'm an introvert, I am shy. The focus is on you. It's not really on the listener. So I am not going to encourage you to start one because you're still focused on yourself. The moment that you take away yourself in that e- equation, then that would be the start. That would be the next step that I would suggest, that in everything that you have to do, it's not going to be the first time that someone else is going to do it. Uh, like, for example, for the message, uh, like our message, Cecilia and I, has the if you are going to interview us, we're going to talk to you about podcasting, podcast management, freelancing, and how you can earn money from it. But if we are not going to tell that story to the other people, we are taking away that chance for them to start a podcast, and then uh, earn from being a podcast manager because we are keeping the message for ourselves because we are shy, we are introvert. But if once we realize that this is not all about us, then go ahead and start it because every message already has been said, I think, 100 times over. So this is not going to be the first time that they have heard about podcasting. But the thing is, it's us. The uniqueness for this message is the messenger. So not everyone can resonate with what we are saying right now, but there are a few people there who are listening and who are watching this who can possibly resonate with the message that we are getting out. So if you are an introvert, if you are shy, you don't want to do this because, oh my God, I'm so shy, stop thinking about yourself because it's a disservice to the person that who really badly and so much badly needs your help. And he or she is waiting for the messenger of that message. But since you are shy and introvert, you don't want to give your message out, that person will not get the solution to their problem. So that's what I'm going to say. I know it's long. It's quite long. But if you are going to make it short, don't make it all about you. So
True.
if you have the message, then it's your obligation, it's your moral obligation to get that out because believe me, there is one person who can resonate and who is waiting for you to say that message. So believe me, at least one.
I will summarize that. Start ugly. So that's the best recommendation. Just start ugly.
I love what you all said. And it's definitely a change of mindset for a lot of people because they think that when you start crafting your channel, I think this is the mindset of the younger generations right now actually. Because I have had that discussion in one room in Clubhouse, and she was talking about I want to I'm getting tired about, and I'm not sure what content to put out there. Should I tell a story about my past, my exes? It's like, who would want to hear that kind of thing, unless it resonates with them, right? Like, is there a solution in that? I wanted to speak out in that room. I mean, no offense, girl, if you find this particular episode, I'm not I'm not saying it was bad. It's just maybe you needed, you need some light that when you are creating a content, if you really want to be impactful or if you really want to help out someone, it doesn't really have to be you, unless what you want to become is, an artista, a celebrity, right? That might work. But if you're not the type of person, maybe you're not, super gifted in acting talent or whatever, then maybe you should look the way that Eloisa instead just mentioned. Ah, the value pod queens.
And
I
pod.
love that advice. It's harsh, yes. Maybe if you are that introvert person who's thinking that whatever, I'm shy, whatever, that's really for you. Truth hurts, I know, but it's you have to wake up. But lastly, okay, so oh my god, the time is super duper fast. It's crazy. But lastly, let's say for example, what would be how can one start? Let's say that this person is not an introvert and maybe someone who is already on the fence if they're going to start or not, but they do have an awesome product. Okay. How can one start? Let's say, for example, they don't have the technical know how, but they already know what kind of message they want to put out there. How can they start creating their own podcast?
Oh, yeah. So for someone who's wanting to start a podcast, but maybe don't have the gadgets or the tech set up yet, what they can do is just use free resources just to test out the water. So they can like avail a free podcast hosting called Anchor.fm. And then even if they do not have a decent a mic setup yet, they can already use their earphones. Just just they just have to ensure that their like recording setup, recording room is like quiet enough to have a decent audio quality. And when it comes to recording platform, they can already use like Zoom, the Zoom free account. They can record. They can use Zoom to record their content. So yeah. And then just upload it to Anchor.fm. And then Anchor.fm already have this feature that when you upload your audio there, they are the ones to distribute it to Apple Podcasts,
Oh.
to Google, to Stitcher, and then for for the technicalities, for the design, cover arts, they can already use Canva. So tech is really not an issue because we have like free resources if they just want to test out the water. Podcasting is really a journey. So um as
Yeah.
as they test as they test out, they can like improve. And then yeah, so um I, tech is already available. There are free resources.
Well, if I am going to tell that person, are they an Apple user? Because if they have an iPhone, I would suggest to go to Clubhouse, set up a room, and talk there by themselves, by
Oh,
himself, by herself.
is it
Practice.
possible?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can start a room and then start saying anything that you wanted to say. You don't have to ping anyone, but as long as you have the iPhone, that is something that I would recommend. But if you do not have the if you don't have the invite and you don't have the Apple product, and you still wanted to you already have a product that you can sell, but you do not have like that your techie uh, tech challenge,
Mhm.
and you wanted I would really ask if they wanted to do the podcast, because I do not want to recommend it if that is something that they do not want to do, or
What if they
they are
want
just
already?
okay. If they want it, then they can start just like what Cecilia said, or start by recording themselves. Just pop up the Zoom and then record, and then talk to another person, maybe in front of you, or just try to record yourself, because it would be impossible that you cannot talk about anything in under 5 minutes. Consider that um, try doing like a practice monologue if you were by yourself. Now, then if you are still hesitant to promote it to everybody else, then try to just upload it to Anchor, just what Cecilia said. And then if you want to go on and proceed with that, if you enjoy the process, because the it should be fun, Mel. Recording is the funnest part of the podcasting production. That's the fun part. If that ends there, if they do not enjoy it, then it's not for them. If they do not enjoy the recording because they have a lot of excuses popping into their heads, then it's not for them. They should stop by now, because not everyone um I am for sure not everyone is can blog, right? So that's why there is
Yeah.
tweet, because on Twitter it's like a mini blog. So I also believe that not everyone can do the podcast show. That's why there is Clubhouse, because it's conversational. It's open to everybody. So if in the recording part you are having a hard time doing the recording, and if you do not find it fun, you really have to reassess if you this is something that you wanted to do long term, especially for someone who has a product that they can sell, because immediately there is a monetization strategy on that part already, because they already have a product. But if they do not enjoy it just at one time, the recording, I do not suggest that they are going to pod fade if they do not enjoy it.
Pod
And
fade.
yeah, we do not recommend that. Now, if the tech is the only problem here, they can hire us, right, Se?
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
going to we are
Yeah.
going to give them the time that they need, because the time, I think the time is the one that we sell over at Valuepod. If the fun part, they can do the recording. If they do not find the editing part fun, then they can send it to us. That's
You
I
know,
think.
while you were talking, now I realize, because I was about to say that if you are an entrepreneur and you're blogging already, maybe in the form of a video, or maybe you're writing, then you can just read that. So it feels like, as a podcasting expert, you do not recommend someone to just repurpose a video or a blog into a podcast. Is that like not on top of your recommendation, or do you encourage, or would you encourage one to come up with a separate type of content? Like, what is your take in that? Because I was about to say that, like, because right now, what I'm trying to do is, I am going to find a popular question on Quora or on Reddit, and then I'm going to give my perception, my POV on that, and I'm just going to give them bam, bam, bam. This is my recommendation, blah, blah, blah. And then what I intend and plan to do is, start creating. I'm like creating a bank of content for the upcoming podcast of mine, the new podcast of mine. So, like, how about you? What is your thoughts on that?
Mm. Some of our clients do repurpose content. We support them doing repurpose content for their podcast episode, but we require them to record like a custom intro to for them to tell the people what are they gonna get from that content. So like I've mentioned earlier, Mel, podcast listeners are looking for actionable steps that they can do. So for people to consume your content, for people to consume your repurpose content, you need to tell them, or you need to give them some you need to tell them that they need to stay, or they need to consume the whole interview for them to get that something that can solve their problem. So aside from the repurpose content, we encourage the podcaster to do like a custom intro. Eloisa, can you like elaborate on why we recommend the podcasters to do custom intro for repurpose?
Yeah. Okay. We support, Mel, don't get us wrong, that we do not support podcasts or people who is already doing like an IGTV stuff, a YouTube stuff, and then Facebook Live stuff, and then do not recommend that they repurpose it. But it should be strategic.
Yeah.
It should be strategic, because Cecilia mentioned it m- m- more than twice already, that people are really they are not going to the podcast directories just like what they are doing on Instagram, that they are going to scroll.
Right.
They are going there because they are going to look for something that can solve what they are
Yep.
feeling, what their problems, what they are looking for something. So that's why they are going to that platform. So if you are going to repurpose your stuff, your Facebook lives, your YouTube videos, it should be strategic. It should be categorized. And then let them know that at the very start of that episode, hook them with
Yeah.
something that can spark interest. Because Cecilia said they are not just going there just for the heck of going there. They are trying to find something that they think will solve their problem. So if you are going to repurpose your stuff, hook them with something that can spark interest. Do the hot script. That's I learned it from Sunny. From she's a YouTube.
What's that?
It's a hot script, a hook, and then there's letter O, and then a testimonial. I cannot recall what the
Oh,
letter O stands for, but she said that all the time. Hook, and then the O outcome. I don't know if it's the outcome, and then the testimonial. So tell them what they are going
Going to get.
to listen to, what is going to happen after they listen, and that the proof that if they listen, this is going to happen to them. So hook them, really get them, like a fish. You are not going to catch the fish without the hook. So if you are going to repurpose your stuff, make sure to be strategic, and then record like a hook, a hot script. Sunny
all right.
De Rusi, I think she's the course creator that I heard that from.
I'm going to check her out. But thank you so much for that wonderful advice, because that actually sums up the intention of creating this specific episode. If you are looking to build your credibility, they already said it. If you really want to become impactful and you want to start, monetizing your content and start generating leads, this and that, then creating your own podcast show would be one of your best bets, because people, like they said, are value pod experts. They already said it. The ones who are listening in your podcast episodes are already looking for solutions, actionable items. And that's for you. Okay, that's an opportunity for you to grab. So, again, thank you so much for watching this episode. I didn't expect it to be this fast, but when the conversation is really good, it's because time, it just flies. Thank you so much for being here with me, Valuepod Queen, Se and Eloisa, and thank you all for being here. But before you go, I'm going to let you all know more about Valuepod, just in case you're already thinking, maybe, yeah, I need a podcast, but I don't know the technical know-how. I need someone who can take care of it. Can you please tell our audience what you can do for them?
Go, Eloisa.
Okay, if you are a person who wanted to start a podcast, you can contact us via our Facebook page. It's called the Valuepod Productions. So you can send us a message and talk to us, and let's have a chat. Let's go and find out if this is something that you really, really wanted to do. Now, if you are a freelancer or a virtual assistant, or a work from home mom who wanted to maybe explore other skills, we would like to invite you to join our Facebook group, which is a free community. It's called the Valuepod VA School. Just search it on Facebook, and then answer the questions, and then you can find us there. Every Saturday we do a live office hour. We allot an hour with the the people who is part of our community, and then you can ask us anything. That's free of charge. We are not charging for that. So if you can join us there, please join the Facebook group. And then for the podcasters, find us on valuepodmarketing.com. Is that our website?
Yeah. Valuepod marketing.
Say anything you want to add.
I just want to thank Coach Mel for having us tonight. It's a fun conversation.
We should have wine,
Yay!
Mel. We should have wine. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh my God, that's long overdue. I've been wanting to go again. But thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for those of you who are watching us till the end of this episode. Go ahead and start your podcast and check out ValuePod.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.